Something silent is happening to the human mind, something so subtle that most people cannot name it, yet they feel it every single day. It is not just fatigue, it is not merely anxiety, and it is certainly not a lack of discipline or willpower. What is happening is a constant drainage of attention, a quiet leakage of the very force that sustains awakened consciousness, the ability to be fully present. We have never had so much access to information, and yet it has never been harder to maintain inner clarity. The mind jumps from stimulus to stimulus, from thought to thought, always slightly behind its own life. The body is here, but attention is scattered, fragmented, diluted in multiple directions. And when attention fragments, something far more serious occurs. The individual loses the inner axis from which conscious choices are made. This is not merely a modern phenomenon. It is not just a byproduct of technology. More than 2,000 years ago, this mental state was already observed and warned against. Jesus spoke about a specific condition of the mind, not as moral failure or sin, but as a dangerous state of unconsciousness, a state in which human beings stop perceiving and begin merely reacting, becoming vulnerable to forces they do not understand. It is important to be transparent from the beginning. Historically, ancient texts do not speak in modern terms such as attention or neuroscience. What they offer are symbolic and practical warnings about vigilance, lucidity, and presence. The perspective shared here is not religious in a dogmatic sense, but integrative and contemporary, connecting ancient insight with verifiable psychology, neuroscience, and, where clearly stated, modern symbolic interpretations inspired by quantum physics. If you feel that your mind rarely rests, that even silence is filled with internal noise, or that life seems to happen just ahead of your awareness, this message did not reach you by accident. This is not content for casual consumption. It is an invitation to recognition. Before continuing, consider subscribing to this channel, not as an automatic gesture, but as a conscious choice. When you do, you signal to your own mental field that you are choosing content that expands awareness rather than depletes it. Likes, comments, and subscriptions are not merely digital metrics. They are symbolic decisions that shape what consistently enters your attention. And as we will explore later, attention is the gateway through which reality is experienced. As we move forward, we will explore why attention has become the most exploited resource of our time, how the brain adapts to constant stimulation, why the mind shifts into survival modes without our awareness, and the spiritual cost of living in a state of continuous distraction. We will clearly distinguish what is scientifically observable, what is psychologically measurable, and what belongs to modern spiritual interpretation, without confusion, but with responsible integration. Later on, we will address a crucial insight: why a distracted mind not only suffers more, but creates less. It cannot sustain intention, anchor decisions, or maintain the vibrational coherence required for transformation. This is not vague mysticism. It is a direct consequence of how attention, emotion, and neuroplasticity interact. Reclaiming attention does not mean controlling thoughts or forcing focus. Those approaches fail because they attempt to solve the problem from within the same fragmented state that created it. What is required is a shift of state, not a behavioral adjustment. If at any point discomfort arises, recognize it as a sign of expansion. Awakening is rarely comfortable at first. It requires inner honesty, the willingness to see where life is being lived on autopilot. Stay present. As we continue, these pieces will connect in a clear, practical, and embodied way. And gradually, not as theory, but as lived experience, the state of mind that restores presence, clarity, and inner authority will reveal itself. When we observe human history carefully, we notice that every era is shaped by whatever most fiercely competes for collective consciousness. There were times when the struggle was for land, then for resources, then for ideologies. Our era is different. The most disputed territory today is not physical or political. It is internal, silent, invisible. It is human attention. Most people still believe attention is merely the ability to focus on something for a few minutes. But this definition is shallow. Attention is the mechanism that organizes experience. It determines what becomes real to you and what fades into background noise. Whatever receives attention expands in consciousness. Whatever does not weakens and disappears. Modern psychology confirms something spiritual traditions have long intuited. We do not experience reality as it is, but as our attention frames it. Two people can go through the same external event and emerge with entirely different inner experiences, simply because their attention was directed toward different aspects. Attention does not merely observe reality, it structures it. Here lies the core problem of our time. We have not only been exposed to more stimuli, we have been gradually trained to fragment attention. Each small interruption teaches the brain to abandon deeper states of perception. Over time, this creates a mind incapable of remaining whole in any experience. Even during rest, attention remains scattered, jumping between memories, expectations, and automatic impulses. From a neuroscientific perspective, the consequences are clear. The human brain operates through patterns of activation. Each interruption activates certain circuits while weakening others. Sustained presence strengthens areas linked to self-regulation, empathy, and clarity of decision-making. Constant dispersion strengthens reactive, impulsive, and defensive circuits. This is not opinion. It is measurable neuroplasticity. Science, however, describes the mechanism, but does not fully address its existential meaning. This is where spiritual language becomes complementary, not contradictory. When ancient traditions spoke of the sleeping mind or the divided self, they were describing this fragmented state of attention, using different symbols. There is no historical evidence that ancient spiritual teachers understood the brain in modern terms. What they possessed was direct observation of human experience. They recognized that a mind unable to sustain presence was easily driven by unconscious impulses, fears, and desires. Today, neuroscience confirms this through a different lens. The fragmented mind does not suffer only from overstimulation, it loses depth. Emotions become shallow. Thoughts become repetitive. Spirituality, when sought, turns into consumption of ideas rather than lived experience. Many feel they are always searching for something, yet rarely find enough inner silence to recognize when it is already present. Later on, we will explore why this internal condition fuels anxiety, emptiness, and the persistent feeling that life is somehow incomplete. For now, it is enough to understand that the issue is not lack of information, but excess dispersion. The modern mind knows much but perceives little. There is also a common misconception that must be dissolved: the belief that multitasking signals intelligence or efficiency. Research consistently shows that the brain does not perform multiple conscious tasks simultaneously. It rapidly switches between them, paying an energetic cost each time. This cost accumulates mentally, emotionally, and physically, leaving people exhausted without knowing why. From a modern spiritual perspective, this exhaustion reflects loss of inner coherence. Psychic energy dissipates because it lacks a stable center. Without a center, there is no conscious creation, only reaction. You may recognize this in your own life. Days that end with the feeling that much was done, yet little was truly lived. Many actions, little presence. Many stimuli, little integration. This is not personal failure. It is the predictable outcome of a system that constantly pulls attention outward. This raises a crucial question. Who would you be if you could sustain full presence for extended periods? What decisions would change? What fears would lose power simply by being observed clearly? These are not rhetorical questions. They point towards something we will explore more deeply. Attention does not only reveal reality, it reveals who you are when you are no longer constantly pulled away from yourself. Stay with me. We are only laying the foundation. What comes next deepens, challenges, and gently dismantles comfortable assumptions, not to create confusion, but to open inner space for something more stable, quieter, and profoundly real. There comes a point where loss of attention stops being merely a psychological discomfort and becomes a genuine spiritual issue. Not in a religious sense, but in the most essential meaning of spirituality, the ability to perceive oneself while perceiving the world. When this ability weakens, human beings begin to live almost entirely in reactive states, responding to external stimuli without the inner pause required for conscious choice. This is why, across many ancient traditions, the idea of awakening never meant acquiring more knowledge. It meant restoring lucidity. Lucidity is not something added to the mind. It emerges when internal noise diminishes. And modern noise is not only informational, it is the noise of scattered attention. Psychologically, this appears as a mind compulsively anticipating the future or replaying the past. The person is physically present but mentally absent, living in projections, planning, worrying, remembering, simulating, often without awareness. Over time, this state becomes so familiar that it is mistaken for identity. This is just how I am. My mind never stops. It is important to distinguish fact from interpretation. Clinical psychology describes these patterns as rumination, anticipatory anxiety, or diffuse attention. These are measurable and well-documented phenomena. Modern spiritual interpretation goes further, suggesting that when these patterns dominate, the individual loses contact with the present moment, the only space where consciousness can reorganize itself. There is nothing mystical about this. From a neuroscientific standpoint, the present moment is the only point where new neural pathways can form. The past is memory, the future is simulation. Only now allows the brain to update patterns. Spiritually, the present is the only point where perception is not filtered through internal narratives. When ancient teachings spoke of watchfulness, they were not referring to tension or control, but to continuous observation. The capacity to notice thoughts arising without immediately merging with them. This state does not require force. It requires presence training. The modern difficulty is that most people train reaction, not presence. Here lies a subtle trap of contemporary self-development, attempting to resolve dispersion with more stimulation. More techniques, more content, more practices. The paradoxical result is a person who feels spiritually busy, yet internally fragmented. Many concepts, little silence. Later on, we will explore how this constant search for methods can become a sophisticated form of avoidance. For now, observe something simple. Whenever there is an urgent need to distract oneself, even with something positive, there is often an inner discomfort not being met. Attention escapes because staying requires presence, and presence reveals unresolved inner material. This is crucial. The mind does not scatter only because it is overstimulated. It scatters because remaining present can be uncomfortable. Presence exposes insecurities, subtle fears, and existential questions long buried beneath distraction. Distraction, in this sense, is not merely a habit. It is a defense mechanism. Science recognizes this as experiential avoidance. Spiritual traditions recognize it as unconsciousness. Different languages, same phenomenon. The mind prefers stimulation over silence because silence demands inner honesty. Recovering attention is not about becoming better, higher, or more spiritual. It is about becoming more real, more whole, more embodied in one's emotions, choices, and perceptions. That alone begins to reorganize life. You may notice that when you are truly present, certain decisions become obvious. Not because someone told you what to do, but because confusion diminishes. Clarity arises not as elaborate thought, but as a quiet sense of alignment. This state may not be permanent at first, but it is recognizable. And once recognized, it becomes an inner reference. If this resonates, pause briefly after this segment. Notice your breathing. Notice where your attention is right now. Do not try to change anything. Simply observe. This simple act is already a form of conscious watchfulness, something pointed to millennia ago and now being rediscovered through new language. Stay with me. Soon we will explore why this state of presence not only calms the mind, but changes the way reality responds to your decisions. And further ahead, we will carefully and responsibly address modern interpretations connecting attention, intention, and manifestation, clearly distinguishing metaphor from evidence. There is a delicate point of convergence between science and spirituality that must be approached with honesty, especially when we speak about attention. In recent years, terms like manifestation, timelines, and mind-created reality have become popular, often used superficially. Here it is essential to distinguish what is empirically verifiable from what is symbolic language, without dismissing the value of either when used responsibly. From a scientific standpoint, there is no evidence that isolated thoughts directly create external events, as if the mind were a remote control for the universe. That literal interpretation is not empirically supported. However, something profoundly verifiable remains. Directed attention shapes perception, decisions, behavior, and over time, the life contexts a person inhabits. This is not mysticism. It is psychological and behavioral causality. When attention stabilizes around certain patterns, beliefs, expectations, emotional states, the brain filters reality accordingly. Psychology refers to this as attentional bias and confirmation bias. Over time, individuals notice what confirms their inner worldview and unconsciously ignore what contradicts it. Gradually, life trajectories emerge that are coherent with the dominant internal state. This is where modern spiritual language speaks of timelines, not as literal parallel universes, but as experiential paths. Each repeated decision, emotional pattern, and attentional focus nudges life towards certain outcomes and away from others. The shift does not happen in a single mystical moment. It happens quietly, through accumulated micro-choices. Quantum physics is often invoked in these discussions and must be treated carefully. Quantum experiments show that observation influences subatomic particles under very specific conditions. This is scientific fact. The symbolic extrapolation made by modern thinkers suggests that, on a macro level, the quality of human observation, conscious attention, influences how reality is experienced. This is not scientific proof, but a meaningful metaphor when understood as such. The risk arises when metaphor is mistaken for literal mechanism. The value appears when it points to something practical. You do not live in the world as it is. You live in the world as you perceive it, and perception is organized by attention. A scattered mind tends to create a scattered life. A coherent mind tends to experience greater coherence. This leads to a crucial insight rarely explored deeply. Intention without attention is merely desire. Many people claim to want change, purpose, or transformation. Yet their daily attention rests in fear, comparison, distraction, or anxious anticipation. The internal field becomes incoherent. The body wants one thing, the mind sustains another, and attention drifts between them. Neuroscience shows that the brain learns through emotionally charged repetition. Superficial thoughts do not consolidate. What is lived with attention and emotion becomes neural pattern. Spiritually, this is translated as vibrational coherence. Different languages, same dynamic. Conscious repetition forms identity. Later, we will explore practical ways to reorganize this coherence without forcing artificial positivity or denying difficult emotions. For now, observe something simple. Where does your attention go when nothing external demands it? In moments of silence, where does your mind naturally drift? That pattern reveals far more about your future reality than declared intentions. There is also a common misconception in modern spiritual discourse that needs correction. The idea that negative thoughts block manifestation. The issue is not occasional negative thinking, it is the absence of presence while thinking. When attention fully merges with automatic thoughts, they become not just thoughts, but lenses through which everything is interpreted. Conscious attention creates space between the observer and mental content. That space changes everything. Psychologically, it enables self-regulation. Spiritually, it restores inner freedom. This is not about eliminating thoughts, but about not being possessed by them. We will return to this point more deeply when we discuss watchfulness and anchoring practices. You may notice that in moments of genuine presence, walking, breathing consciously, observing without urgency, the mind naturally quiets, not because it was forced, but because it found a center. That center is not mental, it is attentional, and it sustains clarity without strain. If this resonates, mark it in some way, a brief comment, a short phrase, or even a private note. This seemingly small act already begins aligning intention and attention. By liking and sharing, you also help expand this reflective field, reaching others who may be seeking this clarity without yet knowing how to name it. Stay with me. What comes next? We'll explore why a distracted mind is more easily guided by external forces, not due to malice in the world, but due to absence of inner center, and how to restore that center in a practical, humane, and sustainable way. There is an inevitable consequence when attention loses stability. Human beings become easier to guide, not because someone is consciously controlling them at all times, but because a mind without an inner center reacts automatically to external stimuli. It responds before perceiving, agrees before reflecting, desires before choosing. This state does not require an enemy. It sustains itself. Historically, this has always been understood. When ancient texts warned about not belonging to the world, they were not referring to physical isolation, but to perceptual independence. A mind that is not anchored within itself adopts narratives, fears, and desires it never consciously chose. It lives by emotional and mental contagion. This is why the warnings attributed to Jesus remain strikingly relevant, not because he predicted modern systems, but because he understood something structural about the human mind. Whoever does not watch their own attention ends up living under the attention of others. Where presence is absent, something else always fills the space. Modern psychology confirms this when it speaks of increased suggestibility under mental fatigue. A tired mind questions less, accepts more, reacts faster. Critical thinking weakens not due to lack of intelligence, but due to attentional exhaustion. People feel they are choosing, when in fact they are merely responding to conditioned impulses. Autonomy is not the absence of influence. It is the capacity to perceive influence as it happens. Without attention, there is no such perception, only chains of reaction. Spiritually, this is described as loss of inner sovereignty. Not as abstraction, but as lived reality. Emotions arise without being chosen. Thoughts loop without being questioned. Decisions align more with fear or comparison than with clarity. Life feels confusing not because it is too complex, but because the inner axis is unstable. You may have noticed moments when, after silence or presence, certain choices became clear. Not easy, but obvious. This contrast reveals something essential. Clarity comes not from more information, but from less dispersion. When attention organizes, perception aligns. This is why simple practices, repeated consciously, have more impact than sporadic, intense efforts. Repetition creates neural pathways. Modern spirituality calls this anchoring. Science calls it state-dependent learning. Different languages, same principle. What you practice with presence becomes internal structure. Here is a key understanding, not as naive mysticism, but as a method of mental and emotional reorganization. The affirmations you leave here, in the comments or in your personal notebook, are more than words. They are vibrational codes. When you write, read, and repeat them consciously, you create an energetic circuit that reprograms the mind and anchors a new timeline in your field. That is why inviting you to comment is not only about engagement. It is about feeding the collective flow of consciousness. It is an anchoring exercise. Daily repetition transforms vibration into identity. So, if you wish to seal this understanding now, write, here, or for yourself. I consciously choose the frequency that creates my world. Repeat this phrase in the coming days, aloud or silently. Let it become the soundtrack of your vibrational field. Because each time you pronounce it, the universe reorganizes itself around this new coherence. And gradually, everything that does not resonate with it begins to dissolve, naturally, without effort. Scientifically speaking, affirmations do not literally reorganize particles in the universe. What they reorganize in a verifiable way are patterns of attention, emotion, and behavior. External changes emerge as indirect consequences of sustained internal shifts. The vibrational language is symbolic. The psychological mechanism is real. When affirmations are repeated mechanically, they do little. When repeated with attention, emotional resonance, and bodily coherence, they influence the nervous system. This alters subtle decisions and daily choices. Accumulated over time, those choices reshape life trajectories. This is where the metaphor of timelines finds practical grounding. Truly centered people rarely speak constantly about manifestation. They simply live with greater clarity, say no more often to what does not resonate, and sustain less internal noise. To an outside observer, the results may seem almost magical. They are not. They are coherence maintained. If this resonates, registering it through a comment or personal writing helps consolidate this understanding. Liking and sharing is not merely supporting a channel. It helps circulate this depth of reflection in an environment saturated with shallow stimulation. Small gestures, when done consciously, reach further than they appear. Stay with me. What comes next will show how to reclaim attention in daily life, without isolation, rigidity, or withdrawal from the world, but by living within it with greater center, lucidity, and inner freedom. Reclaiming attention does not require abandoning the world, isolating oneself, or living in constant introspection. This is a common misconception. True presence does not remove you from life. It deepens your participation in it. The problem is not action, work, planning, or relationships. The problem is doing all of this while being internally divided. As attention begins to reorganize, something subtle yet powerful occurs. External circumstances may not immediately change, but the way you move through them transforms. Situations that once drained energy demand less internal effort. Conflicts do not disappear, but they lose dominance over the mental field. Responses become more precise, less reactive. Psychologically, this happens because stabilized attention reduces chronic activation of the threat system. The body no longer operates in constant alert. The nervous system enters regulated states more frequently. decision-making improves, working memory strengthens, the ability to sustain intention increases. None of this is esoteric. These effects are observable. Spiritually, the same phenomenon is described as alignment, not as perpetual positivity, but as internal coherence. Thought, emotion, and action begin to point in the same direction more often. When this happens, effort decreases. Life flows not because it becomes easy, but because it is no longer undermined by constant inner fragmentation. Presence does not mean absence of thought. It means absence of automatic identification with every thought that arises. Thinking continues, planning, evaluating, reflecting. But attention is no longer constantly hijacked by internal narratives. There is space, and where there is space, there is choice. Later, when ancient texts are viewed through this lens, it becomes clear that the call to watchfulness was never an invitation to tension, but to perceptual sobriety. A sober mind perceives before reacting. That alone transforms relationships, financial decisions, emotional health, and even the lived experience of time. Attention is not reclaimed only in formal practices. It is primarily restored in the micro moments of daily life, how you walk, eat, listen, or pause briefly before responding. These small intervals are more transformative than long occasional practices performed without genuine presence. Neuroscience calls this distributed training. Spirituality calls it conscious living. Both point to the same truth. The quality of attention in ordinary moments shapes the mind more than sporadic intense efforts. The extraordinary emerges from the ordinary when it is lived attentively. You may notice that sustained attention brings a different kind of fatigue, not mental exhaustion, but healthy physical tiredness accompanied by a sense of wholeness. This signals that energy is no longer leaking through internal noise, but being used coherently. At this stage, many people report a shift in time perception. Days feel longer not because more happens, but because more is truly perceived. Life stops rushing by and begins to be inhabited. This is not romanticism. It is a direct consequence of sustained attention. If you look closely, you will likely find that the most meaningful moments of your life occurred when you were fully present, not distracted, not divided, not anticipating the next step. Presence does not manufacture meaning. It reveals the meaning that was always there, unnoticed. Here, science and spirituality cease to appear as separate domains and reveal themselves as complementary languages describing the same fundamental human experience. An attentive mind is not only calmer, it is more truthful. And truth, when perceived without excessive filters, has a deeply reorganizing power. Stay with me. What comes next is not an ending in the conventional sense, but a living synthesis, integrating everything explored so far into clear, practical, and sustainable guidance, so that presence is not only understood, but embodied. Everything explored so far converges into a simple yet deeply transformative understanding. The quality of your attention defines the quality of your lived experience, not as a motivational slogan, but as an observable reality. Where attention consistently rests, the mind organizes, the body responds, and decisions align or fragment. When attention is scattered, life feels confusing. When attention stabilizes, confusion diminishes, not because problems vanish, but because they no longer dominate the entire field of consciousness. This restores something essential: the margin of choice. And conscious choice is the foundation of both psychological health and spiritual maturity. Presence is not a permanent state achieved once and for all. It is a living practice, renewed daily. There are days of clarity and days of dispersion. What changes over time is not the absence of distraction, but how quickly you notice you have drifted and returned to center. That repeated return creates stability, Scientifically, this appears as more integrated neural circuits, improved emotional regulation, and greater capacity to sustain intention. Spiritually, it is described as alignment, coherence, or conscious watchfulness. Different languages, same lived experience. A present mind is not tense. It is relaxed and alert at the same time. It does not escape the world, nor does it lose itself in it. It acts when necessary, rests when wise, and observes before reacting. This state is not reserved for monks or scholars. It is accessible in daily life through small actions repeated with attention. You do not need to believe everything to benefit from something. You only need to test, observe, and apply with honesty. Attention can be trained. Presence can be cultivated. The effects appear not as grand promises, but as subtle shifts that, accumulated, profoundly change the way life is lived. If this message resonated with you, share it. Help expand this field of consciousness, because each awakened person illuminates hundreds of others. Leave your comment, your vibration, your testimony, not merely for engagement, but because your energy is part of this collective construction. And remember, the highest timeline is not a place in the future, it is a state of being, available here and now. May you walk in peace, clarity, and love. Until the next awakening.